This is chapter 4, part 2. So this deals with the congruent triangles, including the parts that are congruent. It has the side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and hypotenuse leg. Matter of fact, over here in the theorems or postulates section, I recommend that you start off putting that. So side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and a hypotenuse leg. That way you can kind of eliminate the options, because on the test it's multiple choice, and that way you're looking through them and finding at least which ones are not possible when you get there. So up here, the first one says, in your own words, define what congruency means. So it's supposed to be in your own words, not in mine, but the way that I think of it is anything with the same size and shape, something like that. So it's exactly the same. Like a copy, like a perfect copy. It's not bigger, it's not smaller, it's not lighter, it's not heavier. Okay, so number 2, it says, how many corresponding parts do congruent triangles have? Remember that there's going to be 3 angles, so 3 congruent angles, and there's going to be 3 congruent sides, so that's going to be a total of 6 congruent parts. So if you put 6, good job, that was the right answer. Over here it says, list the corresponding parts of the triangles. If we're looking at the angles, remember first letter with first letter, second with second, third with third. So you can go angle C is congruent to angle D, because that's the first spot. Angle A is congruent to angle O, that's the second one. And then angle T is congruent to angle G, because that's the third one. And it's the same thing for the sides, you're just doing 2 at a time. So if it's CA, that's going to be congruent with DO, the first and second letters. And then AT is going to be congruent with OG, the second and third letters. And then CT is going to be congruent with DG, the first and the third letters. I know it looks like a G, but that's C and then T. Sorry about that. That's 2 different letters. There you go. Now this part, my favorite part, the one about the theorems and the postulates and the congruency statements. So look through this part. First, find out how many sides and how many angles. And whenever you see a right triangle, always check for a hypotenuse leg. So like both of these have right triangles. This one doesn't. I'm not even going to worry about hypotenuse leg. There's no way. So if I come over here for a hypotenuse leg, the hypotenuse is this side over here, CB. It needs to be congruent with DE. We don't have that. So that means hypotenuse leg is out. But I checked it first because it was a right triangle. Then I go through and I go, okay, well, how many sides do I have marked off? So when it comes to sides, I only have CA because, oh, I also have AB. So CA has this mark that shows congruence with DF, and then AB has a 7 which shows congruence to EF. So I have 2 sets of sides. And then I look at my angles and, okay, angles, I'm going to put the symbol for angles. And the only angle that has any kind of marking on it that shows congruence is A has a right angle and F has a right angle. So there's only 1. So if I have 2 sides and 1 angle, looking through my options, it can't be side, 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 because that takes 3, I only have 2. It could be side, angle, side. It's not angle, side, angle, because this needs 2 angles and I only have 1. It's not angle, angle, side. Again, you need 2 angles, I only have 1. And then hypotenuse leg was already out. So the only other option is that it's not enough information. And that only happens if it's not one of these. So first check these 5, and if it's not one of these, then it's not enough information. So if I come over here and I'm checking, is it side angle side? You have to see if the angle is between the sides. So if it is side angle side, the angle has to be in the middle. So I have side CA over here, right there, and that one matched over here. And then I have side AB over here, and I have the F right there. And if I look at where those two intersect, where they cross, where they hit right here at A, which is the angle that is congruent, and this one hits over here at F, which is the angle where it's congruent. That means that that angle is between the two sides. That's why the A is between the two S's. So that's where you go, okay, well then this has to be side, angle, side. As far as the congruent statement, match it letter for letter. So C over here matches up with D. It's the end of the one that's marked with a single little tick. So that has to go with D. So first one, D. And then the second letter is A over here. That's the right angle. That has to go with F. And then B is the third letter. That one's on the end of the 7. So that has to go with E. So D, F, E would be the order. And that's how you do all three of these. So the next one, it's a right triangle. So first check for hypotenuse leg. ML is the hypotenuse. JH is the hypotenuse. And then look for a leg. MK is a leg. JG is a leg. That means that this one is HL, and I didn't have to go through all the other options. Then you go through and go letter for letter. L over here is the one that it's at the end of the side with one tick. So that goes with H. Almost forgot to put the triangle in the front. That's important. M, that's the one over here where the one side with one tick and the side with two ticks meet. And that matches up with this one. JH has 1, JG has 2, and they meet right here at J. J has to be your second letter. And then K is the right angle. That has to match with G. That's the order. Third one of these, we don't have a right angle, so we're not even worried about HL. So we're counting how many sides and how many angles. So when it comes to sides, we have the 3 matching 3, the 4 matching 4, and the 5 matching 5. So that means we have 3 sets of congruent sides. When it comes to the angles, A doesn't have any mark, N doesn't have any mark, B doesn't have any mark, so we don't have any. So the only option that has all 3 sides is this one. Because side, side, side doesn't have any angles involved, it doesn't matter which order. This one's easiest, and it's side, side, side. Now the congruent statement, one letter at a time. If you look at A, it's between the 3 and the 5, so it matches to E, because that's between 3 and 5. And then B is between the 4 and the 5. That matches with D, between the 4 and the 5. And then the last letter, N, between the 3 and the 4, goes with C, between the 3 and the 4. And that's the order E, D, C. Continuing on, I recommend you do this on your own if it's not already marked. Remember, you can use scratch paper. On this one, you're supposed to print it out if you have a printer, and if not, you're writing it by hand. But you can add in those symbols for congruent because these are vertical angles right here. I'm gonna put a little note. So you know why I did that. Because this is supposed to be a study guide that helps you to prepare for the test. It's not something I would expect you to write on the test, but it is something that's hopefully going to help you out when you're studying. So we have those right there. Now this is not a right triangle, so we're not even worried about HL. So we're looking for how many sides and how many angles. When it comes to the sides, HK does not have anything, KM does not have anything, but MH has a mark, and that matches to this mark over here. So we have one side. Now we look at the angles. M and H are both, oh, I should put a different symbol for that. Sorry. We don't want to say that they're both congruent to the same angles. So I'm going to add an extra little set of arcs right there. Okay. So we have, for angles, once again, M has a mark, so there's 1, And then H has 2 marks that we put, the vertical angles, so that's 2. So we have 2 of those. Remember, we can look through our options. So we have these options over here. It's not side, side, side because we don't have 3 sides. It's not side, angle, side because we don't have 2 sides. We do have 2 angles and a side, so it could be angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. Those are the 2 options. It's either angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. Or if it's none of those, then it'd be NEI, but it's going to be one of those. So we've narrowed it down to one of these 2, just because of the number of things that we have that are congruent. And then we're looking for, is the side in between those angles or is it not in between those angles? So if I'm only looking at one triangle, H is one angle and M is the other one. And if I look at that side in between, it's right in between. That means that it's this one with the angle, side, angle, not angle, angle, side. So your answer, your final answer would be angle, side, angle. Then the congruent statement, K was the one that didn't have any markings. That goes with E. And then M is the one that has an arc, one arc. So that goes with G. And then H is one side of the vertical angle. So it goes with H, the other side of the vertical angle. Number 8, we've got 2 right triangles. One of them's rotated so it could be on top of the other one, and then they share a side here. So remember that you can add your own marks if you see something that you know definitely has to be congruent. So AC is being used for both triangles. That does count as a congruent side. Same way that we did the vertical angles over here. Then we have right triangles. We should check for HL. So for a hypotenuse leg, we have to have the hypotenuse congruent. AC is the hypotenuse, and they both use it. So we have the hypotenuse. And we have to have a leg that is congruent. AD does not have a mark, and BC does not have a mark. So it is not going to be HL, but we check that one first. Let me go through how many sides. AD does not have any mark, BC does not have any mark. CA is the only one that matches to CA on the other triangle. So we have one side. Then we do the angles, focusing on just one triangle and just looking to see if the other one has the same marks. D has a right angle, that matches up. And then C over here has an angle, and that matches up to this one's A over there. So when it comes to the angles, we have 2 of them. Again, look at the options. It's not side, 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 because we don't have 3 sides. It's not side, angle, side, because we don't have 2 sides. It could be angle, side, angle, or it could be angle, angle, side. Those are the only 2 options that make any kind of sense. The other ones don't work because we don't have enough of the sides or the angles, or it's not a right triangle with a hypotenuse and a leg marked. So we're down to these 2, and then we just have to see if it's between or not in between. At this point, focus on one triangle, and then you can just check afterwards for the other one. So if I cover this up completely, I can see that I have angle A and angle B, and then the side is not between them. So that means it's not going to be the side between them. It's going to be the side outside of the 2 angles. So it has to be this one. Then you come down to the congruent statement, one letter at a time. So ACD, the one that's given to you, is this top one. And the one that you're going to write is going to be the bottom one. So I'm going to put those little marks right there just to remind myself, which one am I looking at? So A on the first triangle is the one that didn't have any marking. So on the second triangle, that's going to go with C. And then C on the first triangle is the one that does have the 2 marks. That's going to match up with A. And then the third one, D is the right angle. Well, that has to go with B. So that's the end of the first page. Let me get my extra copies out of the way. All right, this is the back side. So on the back side, you were just solving. So you need to find which part matches to this 5x plus 2. So you already know the equation is going to have 5x plus 2 on one side. That has 2 marks. So you come to the triangle, the side that's congruent to it would be the 32. Now that we have the equation, remember you're going to do the opposite and be fair. And then the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. Be fair. And then you get x is 6. Next one, same thing. This one, it tells you in the congruent statement, so you're going to have to look down here. So when I'm looking for A is on angle P over here. Angle P matches with Z. So that 2A is going to equal whatever's at Z, but I don't have Z. So this is where you have to find Z. And the way I'm going to do that is subtract from 180. So the 2 angles that I already have, I'm going to subtract them, and then that gives me 60 degrees right here. But I'm the one who had to find that angle. And then after that, you just divide by 2. And in this case, you get 30. For B, you're going to do the same thing, but B's on a side. So it's still going to be B plus 1 equals whatever is going to be on the congruent side. So B plus 1 is between the M and the P. M and P is the second and the third letters, so that has to go between the Y and the Z. If I look between the Y and the Z, I have the 12 right here. You're going to subtract 1. You're going to get B is 11. And there you go. So you have to be able to find with the congruent statement which side matches up with the B plus 1. And then solve it. Number 11, same thing. So when I'm looking at X, X is on this side between the B and the A. So it's going to start with 12x equals, and then if it's between the B and the A, that means it has to be between the E and the D. So the E and the D is the 48 right there. 48. Now divide by 12 to get the X all by itself. And there's that one. And then for Y, Y is over here on side AC. So 3y equals, and then I go, okay, if it's between AC, that's going to be the first and second letter. It has to go between the F and the E. The F and the E would be this 33 right there. Then I divide by 3. And I get y is 11. Same concept as the first two. Okay, number 12, it says if triangle RMT is congruent to triangle QSM and RM is 8 and MT is 10 and RT is 9, it asks for SM and SQ. So pay attention to the congruent statement. SM is the second and the third letter. That has to go with MT. So if I can find what MT is, then that's going to be my answer. So MT was 10. There you go. I'm just putting this right here so you know where I got the 10 from. SQ, okay, SQ is the first and second letter. That has to go with RM or MR. So if I look at the options, RM's right here, that means it has to be the 8. That's all you need to do is match them up using the congruent statement, and you'll be able to find which one has to be congruent, which one has to be the same distance. Number 13, this is what's missing for angle side congruence. So if you already have one angle and you already have one side, then you have to figure out which one of these has to be the angle that's also marked so that my side is not in between the angles. So if I put it here, that's going to put the side right in between. So I don't want to use R. I have to come over here to T. And then angle T has to be the one that's congruent to angle Y. Oh no, wait a minute. This thing's been rotated. So if I look on this one and go, okay, X is here. I don't want it here. And oh, it did end up being Y. Awesome. But don't just assume that it's because, it's down in the left corner. So I'm looking at it. as when I did that, I went, okay, not this one, because that would make it angle side angle. So that's how I picked T. And then I came over here and did the same process. So not this one where the Z is at, because then that would be angle side angle. So then I had to choose this one. So it would be angle T has to be congruent with angle Y. Over here it says solve for X, Y, and Z, and it gives you a congruent statement. And this one's a quadrilateral, same process. So even though it's not a triangle, same process. Find the parts that match. So it says X. If I look at X over here, look at X right here, it's the third letter. The third letter has to go with C. So this X is how I know to use this with X. So Z has to equal 40. Oh wait, duh. Variable compared to side, sorry. Let me restart that. Yeah, so let's see. We're starting with variable X. It's lowercase. This is why it's important about lowercase and capital. So lowercase x, oof, what a ninny. Okay, lowercase x is over here where the AB is at, right? So I go 5x equals. So this one, AB, is congruent to RT, which is the right side over here. And that's how I know that this one goes right there, 5x equals 12. And then I divide by 5 and divide by 5, and then x equals 12 divided by 5. 2.4. 2.4. That is such a small space to write in. Sorry about that. Okay, now doing y, lowercase y, not capital Y. So lowercase y is right here on YR. So if I look at YR, that's the last letter and the first letter. That has to go with DA. So I look for DA. DA is this one. So that's how I know that 2y has to equal the 9. Then I divide by 2, and I divide by 2, and I get 4.5. Again, not enough space, so that's why I'm putting them up a little bit higher. And then z, lowercase z, is right there in angle C. And then I go, okay, C over here matches with X over there, so C over here matches with X over there. So Z has to equal 40. And that's the entire review.